Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Doug Mertz from the Missouri Association of Secondary School Principals. I recognize most of the faces and names. Welcome this afternoon. Just some reminders and norms for today. If you're just coming on, more than likely you'll have your microphone muted. But once you do some speaking, just mute it so that background noise doesn't distract from everything that's going on. We will be recording this for others to view that did not have the opportunity to participate. And I know that right now there's a national meeting going on at the same time. And Jared, don't let me forget, I'm going to ask if we can move this either an hour before or hour after so that we can do the webinar for MoASSP, the town meeting webinar. It's at the same time. There's a live chat. If you go up to the top, you can click on your live chat. And if you have a question or something that Jared is not asked or you want him to ask, just because you might be shy, that's okay. Pose that question. Just make sure you send it to everyone, or you can just send it to Jared. Depending on how many we have online, be patient and make sure that you contribute what you have to say, because your input is very valuable to all of us. So without any further delay, Jared, it's yours.
Okay, thanks for thanks for joining us, guys. I know we've got visitors from Dr. McDonald's cohort of leaders, and I heard somebody else say they're with a security company just kind of joining in with us. So welcome to everybody. I'm just sitting out here in the forest enjoying my social isolation. Had a teacher have a funky background the other day, so I finally figured out if you download an image and you can, when you start your video, you can choose a virtual background. So if you're wanting to spice up the 27 Zoom meetings you're in this week, that's one way to do that. So I thought we'd start just maybe everybody kind of talk about where you're at in terms of for sure school closures. Our board's talked about they're wanting to make a decision every 2 weeks. So we're out through the 17th. There's many that have said the 24th, the 30th, and then I even had one. It's like Amber Russell said, Calhoun's out through May 4th. Does anybody have anything different that they're doing in terms of for sure on the dates that they're closed?
Jared, I think around the state, it's a variety, and I think it's kind of whenever they originally set their date, and now as the governor and the president or the mayor of your town are putting different restrictions on things, those are changing as we go. So they're probably a little bit fluid right now, nothing real consistent.
Is there any talk from the state level governor or DESE, somebody making a hard call on all schools, or is it still local control concept?
I think it's local control concept right now. I think we'll have to just kind of wait and see how things evolve. If they get way worse, get better, start to plateau, we'll have to kind of see. I'm not an expert or know much about all this. I don't know how to even say the word, the etymology to it, but it seems to be a variety of different things in different parts of the country. And I think it depends on whether they're following the 6 foot stay in place kind of rules that have been put in for their area or region. So it spreads pretty quickly, I think, if you are out and about.
Anybody else on just dates or closures or how those decisions are being made for you locally?
I guess I would input that we are actually to the 24th, but with the president making the social distancing till the 30th, I don't see how that doesn't change our way of thinking and extending that. So I know that's kind of been thrown out there too.
Agreed. I think on a lot of our minds, I don't know how we can go from where we're at now to all of a sudden putting, in some cases, 500 or 1,000 kids back in school together, a few days later, that there may be a slow progression from that. So,
And I haven't seen it officially, but did the president extend his thing past April 30th, or was that just he was mentioning that yesterday? Anybody catch that?
I think it was 30 days, if I
Okay.
remember right.
I think all I've seen from him is the April 30th date.
Okay.
No.
How about delivery of instruction? Is anybody having hurdles that they're having to overcome or need brainstorm on, or anybody having success where you feel like it's working well on how we're getting information out to kids, how continuing some sort of learning during the crisis?
Something that I would like to throw out there is, we are having, I think, the major challenges with the students that don't have internet access. And so what we've been doing is we've made a folder, and teachers are putting their assignments into the folder, and then administrators are going to make copies of that at our central office, and we're mailing it. My question is we're in the midst of trying to figure out how to get that back. And one of the things we talked about was dropping it off and having a designated area for them to drop it off. And then how long does it have to sit there before you touch it? And I didn't know if anybody was having those same issues and have come up with a better idea for those that have lack of internet issues.
We're doing about 20% of our population is asking for packets. We're just now getting them out, but our nurse sent out guidance kind of following schools around the country that don't touch them for 48 hours when they come back. So we've got a drop-off box in our foyer. We've got the 2 sets of doors. Parents can come in and drop that stuff back off to us, and we're just letting it sit for a couple of days before anybody touches it. I don't know if that's ideal, but that's kind of how we're solving it.
That's good to know. I mean, we're in the same boat. We had about 90% say they had access, so the large chunks being done virtually. But we created right at 100 packets. At the high school level, I mean, it's not as simple as here's your first grade packet. It's every kid has in our building seven different classes, and it was a bear for our office staff to do, but they killed it and did a great job. That 48 hours is interesting because we were wondering the same thing. I mean, we're trying to encourage any kid that could take a picture and email back so there's not that exchange. But once again, we're dealing with kids without access. So I really like that suggestion of a central drop off, and just we're going to let them sit for a while and then get them to the teachers.
I've got a question that kind of follows up on what she was asking. We also have some students that had packets sent home, but our question now is if he extends our stay-at-home order and schools remain out, how are you guys going to work to get your staff back into buildings so that they can continue putting together more packets or additional instruction to keep this learning going beyond just this week or maybe even 2 weeks from now? How do we continue after that, bringing staff back into the buildings?
Ours, and for our situation I can speak to, we have a minimal staff. I've got assistant principal kind of leading that piece of it, and then we've got 2 or 3 volunteers that come in once a week and run the packet. So we've only got about 3 or 4 staff members in the building for a minimal amount, and then anywhere our staff goes, the custodians come in behind them and clean. Is anybody else doing paper delivery and hurdles or successes with that?
I think one of the questions that came up on the southeast region was how long do you quarantine that material when you get it back? Some were talking 2 days, some were talking 4 days, and then at day 7 they'd grade it. So I don't really know that there's any standard answer, but what is the length of time that this virus can live on a surface and not be a hazard?
I think at a minimum 48 hours is kind of what our nurse was saying. And she was in a nurse cohort of people talking that use caution and keep it untouched for at least 48. I don't know if there's any medical backing to that, but
The stuff I've seen kind of varies on the surface. I mean, paper, I've seen 24 hours, stuff like stainless steel, I've seen 3 days, but I like that 48 hour, but I'd probably do that plus some just to be
Yeah.
sure, you know.
I've seen the same thing for hard surfaces like stainless steel, about 3 days.
Okay, so something over 72 hours if you're dealing with a stainless steel or a hard surface.
what about the delivery through electronic or virtual through learning management systems? Is that going successful for people so far? Any hurdles that you guys as principals are having to jump in on?
I can say one of the first hurdles, or something that just recently came up today, some research that I came across last night, was schools that are using resources that have not been yet approved by their board might put teachers in a liability issue because it's not school approved yet. And my superintendent was working with a whole lot of other superintendents to determine whether or not this is one of those precedences where that would not be a concern. But I know a lot of my staff are concerned about that because, you know, if they're held liable for using some type of resource that hasn't yet been approved by the school board, what if something goes wrong with that? What if a student's information is disclosed to a third party member? Or what if they use it inappropriately in some way or another? Does that liability fall back onto the teacher? Or will there be other things in place that will protect them, even though the boards have not yet approved the use of some of these resources?
Anybody else dealing with that yet?
Nope. Jared, I might just jump in. I don't know. I'm not sure if you're talking like a Canvas or something like that, or if it's different other materials, but typically your board doesn't approve, at least my experience has been the board doesn't approve per se resources, certain resources, you know, books or materials, things like that, probably not as much. But if you're going to have something where you're going to have student information on it, probably you'd want to be cautious there.
I know the only thing that has come up with us is there was a little bit of concern using Zoom with students and some privacy concerns that we're kind of asking people to be appropriate and use it appropriately, use caution. And I think Zoom is trying to catch up as quick as possible. So I don't know if any school districts are saying no to Zoom. We kind of said, given the crisis, we're going to use it with caution because we feel like there's a lot of more good than bad that can occur with it. I assume that would be the same with some of the resources you're talking about, Matt. And Matt, where are you at? Where are you located?
I'm in California, Missouri.
Okay.
Jared, I've been on like 3 of these, special ed and others, and one of the groups, I don't remember which one, talked about if they're going to use Zoom and it's a one-on-one with the student or something, the expectation was, or even with a parent or something, they were going to record it. And that was the expectation. If it was multiple students, they weren't as concerned, but the smaller the number, the more likely they were to record it.
Some very similar expectation. Anybody else, is anybody telling their staff no to Zoom, or is everybody okay with it with caution?
Our administration has told us that we cannot use Zoom. We have to use Google Meet only. And every time that we do meet with our students, we have to invite our main administrator. So.
The next thing I had down, if anybody else has there, is just grades. Last time we were kind of just all getting to that point about grades and grading and what we're doing in terms of, there's several different ideas in terms of pass fail. It can only be improvement, only doing review type material. Has anybody made further steps on their policies, procedures when it comes to grading, particularly at the high school level, maybe where credits are on the line, graduation could be as a part of that?
This is Brad Hunter at Windsor. We're going to do pass fail, probably at least, until we come back to school, but I'd be interested to know what other people are doing. If you do pass fail, are you just going to freeze everybody's grades like at the end of third quarter to figure like GPA, valedictorian, class rank, all those kind of things?
Anybody cross that bridge yet?
Yeah, I mean, Brad Briscoe at Odessa. Sorry, I should have introduced myself earlier. What we've decided to do is we've used the third quarter grade as our baseline grade. Students may not fall below that baseline. However, they may improve their grade if they do the work. We've had discussions on how that looks. We didn't think just like out of zero bonus point type thing it would inflate grades. So we're telling our teachers we're going to grade things as we would, obviously with a little grace given the circumstances of direct instruction. And if that assignment or that assessment will raise their grade, you add it to the grade book. If it will lower their grade, you kick it out and exempt them from that. And I don't know if that's the right answer or not, but that's just what we kind of decided to do.
I've seen a lot of similar things. The other one thing I did see, and I don't know, it's kind of like attendance and credit, but it said, even if the student is okay with their grade, they have to remain active in the learning in order to receive credit. Because I think teachers are concerned that, if a kid has a quote B and is okay with it, it can't be hindered. They may just not do anything the rest of the semester. So I saw that in I can't remember where I saw that, somebody's clause that they still had to remain active to maintain that grade. Just another thought there. Anybody else on grades or grading or how you're doing that in terms of GPA? I brought up to our staff, I think seniors will move them through. I'm worried about how this will affect longer term GPA for junior, sophomore, freshman on down at the high school level. If, GPAs are weird this semester, will it have a longer term ripple effect that we've yet to see?
Hi guys, I'm Brooke. I teach freshmen at Blue Springs Freshman Center campus, and I was told by my administrators that I have to put in grades at least 2 to 3 times a week. And the only, stipulation that we're having is as a math department, we all have to be grading the exact same. So right now it's all review stuff, but eventually we're gonna have to get into new stuff, and I'm not sure how that's gonna look. But yeah, that's where we're at right now at Blue Springs.
Thank you. Has anybody else released any sort of grading? We're just getting ready to put information out to the public on it with this closure. What it was decided by our board last night through the 17th. We're going to kind of include the next round of instruction, and here's our grading. That's the one thing we're hearing from parents to kind of hold their kids accountable, and teachers are worried that if students don't do it. We have our high flyers wanting more and more and more. We have some that are excited that they know they may not have to do anything and get by for the semester. So. Any other discussion on grading, guys, or grades or credits or anything that may come up here in the next few weeks?
My question to the administrators in the group is how many of these discussions and conversations that you guys are having are building level versus district level? Because that's something, we're a K-12 building. We're all in one. We've got around 900 students K-12. And so we're trying to be consistent across the board K-12, but at the same time, some of our needs are a little bit different in each building. So are you guys trying to look at doing something district wide or just have your own building policy?
Brian, we did district-wide. We came up with 3 parameters, and then each building is making their own stipulations underneath that umbrella.
And we're very similar, Brian. I mean, I think it's different at the high school because you're dealing with GPAs, you're dealing with credits, you're dealing with kids trying to move on and get college scholarships, and so I think it has to be a little different at the high school. But we have district parameters, but as far as moving and advancing grades, that's more the high school level in our district.
Anything else on grades? Okay, I'm going to throw out graduation. Has anybody made any moves on graduation and changing what it looks like when it's hosted, format, anything like that they want to share?
We're still, repeat from last time we met, but we're still holding off before we cancel anything. We want that to be the last resort. We're going to try to postpone as long as possible. So even if it's in July, that's what we're looking at.
Does everybody else kind of hold pattern?
Yep.
Jared, as far as across the state, most everything's in a hold pattern. Proms, awards, events, graduations, obviously spring sports, anything really that they can still hang on to a little bit of, even if they move it to later in the summer. As far as graduation, even I think they were talking about, a couple schools were even talking about maybe having prom in July if they could, just to get that event in for those seniors before they took off for a college, university, a technical school, or military.
Is anybody any different than that? Just hold pattern and waiting till the last minute? I didn't know. One thing that it brought up, how far in advance at some point, if we're not going to have graduation, for us, it's May 17th. I need to let families know so that people can make arrangements and travel things. I think everybody's delaying the inevitable, but at what point do we have to make that call? How far out in advance, or change the format if anybody had crossed over and done that yet?
I can probably speak for California high school. It's probably changed a little bit now since the stay-at-home order has been extended, but we were originally discussing the idea of bringing students in with families by last name alphabet in small groups, and maybe doing 30 to 50 families at a time, because we've got a performing arts center that'll hold 600. So we could just spread them all out so that we're still doing that distancing, but then allowing those kids to walk across the stage and maybe do the whole process over the course of a few weeks. It's not ideal, but at least it's not forcing them to wait all the way until June.
Anybody else brainstorm creative ideas to still do something graduation related?
We talked about having ours out in our parking lot and trying to get a FM radio channel and broadcast it where people could sit in their cars with their radios on and listen, and I don't know, I think they do that in Branson, like maybe at one of their Christmas light tours. You tune your radio into a certain station. We talked about that. We talked about maybe having it out at our football field on the bleachers and just with the kids and the immediate family only at different times.
I know some churches are doing that, Brad, right now, so it would be something possible.
And I don't know anything about how to do that. It's just something we kicked around last night after our board meeting, because our board decided that we won't go back to school till May the 4th. And our graduation is May 17th. So, we basically have 2 weeks to get all that figured out if we get to go back then.
Anybody else creative graduation? I think it was Holden talked about doing maybe a drive up concept in front of their building last time. I'd thrown out to people that I would be willing to drive to graduates' houses. At least their small number of family would be there and deliver a diploma around the time of the actual graduation, with hopes that maybe we do the formal ceremony at a later date. I don't know if we've got about 120 graduates probably.
I think smaller schools like us, we have a lot more options.
Okay.
We're only going to have 50, 55 graduates. So, somebody like Blue Springs or something with 600, that's going to be a bigger pain than what we have. So.
Okay, anything else on graduation proms? Everybody kind of hold pattern. We've canceled one event, Skip to Serve, that was just for seniors. Everything else, we're going to just kind of hold pattern. We are meeting, myself, the senior counselor, senior class sponsor, and then 4 seniors from their class are having a Zoom meeting together tomorrow, just to get some student input on it and ask them if they have ideas on things they'd like to do if we come to a plan B or C. Kind of get some student input on ideas and maybe get them involved in it, since they're losing out on some things that are big for senior year. Okay.
We've canceled everything through the 24th. Our prom fell within that window. When I say cancel, postpone. Our prom was the 18th. We're looking at a date in July that we could still host prom and provide that opportunity, assuming we're able to at that point.
I know one concern that others have brought up is just the possibility that you have graduates coming back to prom in July and what that might look like. And it's just what we'll have to deal with, but something to think about as well.
Yeah, and I mean, typically that'd be a guest type thing, but I think this is a little different circumstance.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about that.
Okay, I have just one little business from MoASSP. I'm making contact with our awards winners for this spring. We were supposed to have an award ceremony April 9th, so we've canceled that. We'll announce all of our award winners once I make contact with them over the phone, and then celebrate them in the fall for the central region. And then we will start working on selecting officers for next year. If any of you guys are interested, just shoot me an email, and then I'll put something out to the whole group as we create our officer team for next year. So, and then the last thing I had down is just check in on you guys and see how principals are dealing with it. I was trying to kind of target what emotion I was feeling last night. I had anger, I had sadness, and then I was thankful in some ways. So angry and frustrated the situation, sad that I couldn't do some things, but also thankful that I have spent a lot more time with my kids right now. Although I always wonder why I'm hiding in the basement on Zoom, but it's kind of a myriad of emotions, and just want to check in on you guys and see if you're feeling the same, and if principals are dealing with the same emotions that everybody else is.
It's really nice being able to see a lot of people, and I know I go through 4 or 5 different Zooms a day, and it's nice to see a lot of familiar faces that you guys are surviving, I know, and you're doing the best you can do in your region, your county, your community. The thing I would ask you to do, and I've kind of taken it upon myself, is to reach out to some of those folks that are outside your area that you were friends with, maybe you went to high school with. Just touch base with them around the country or around the state and check on them. Some of them are doing really well. Some of them are in medical fields and they're in challenges. So it's always nice to check on them. They like to hear from you too. So it's you're working on some mental health of other folks. One item that came up the other day, and while you're talking about grading, and I don't know what the NCAA is going to do, but all of you will have kids that will probably go on to some type of high school or college career in an athletic or NAIA athletic field, sport. Make sure that we're checking before we decide to go completely pass fail in some school, that the NCAA is going to make some adaptations. Because if you go straight pass fail and they're all just 4 classes, that doesn't bode well with the NCAA. Now, they're probably going to make some adaptations or waivers for kids, but you're talking about seniors through freshmen that are going to have a semester of maybe pass fail if you would do that. So while you're thinking about that, just put that in the back of your mind that you check that before your school or district does that. That came up in the other side of the state this afternoon or this morning.
Anybody else have problems out there they want to brainstorm with as a group as we have this?
I just want to throw out, and maybe this, sorry to end the meeting maybe on a pessimistic note, somebody else can end on something different. But if you are not part of any organization that provides financial support, the only thing I will suggest is join some sort of group, because I have fears of, some of the things that we're asking people to do. I know every district is different, but, we have paras coming in, we have secretaries coming in, teachers coming in to make copies and different things. And what responsibility do we hold if somebody were to come down and get sick and somehow it was traced back to a student or somebody else in the district, if we're asking these people to come in, especially with social distancing? So I'm just going to throw out that little caveat. If you don't have some sort of protection, now's the time to join some sort of organization so you have some sort of legal help if something were to happen. So I know that's kind of worst case scenario, but just something to think about.
Anybody else taking precautions in terms of, I had somebody ask me this morning if we were taking the temperature of our food service workers as they're preparing meals to go out, and we're not. And I don't know if others are, as people come in, if they're just asking them to tell you if they have any sort of symptoms of sickness or that kind of stuff. I do know, I believe it's Raytown, and then maybe one on the Kansas side has had to shut down their food deliveries because somebody that was involved in the process got sick. So I think that would be similar, Brian, if they're doing packets or food. If that happens, that's a concern right now as well.
Well, I think as widespread as this is, it's probably inevitable that it's going to happen somewhere, whether it be in food service or it's in healthcare. You're going to have a healthcare provider that's probably going to get sick based on the spread of this virus. So I would say take all the precautions you can. Just be as safe as you can. Someone asked on here about spring conference. We are still in a holding pattern. We're kind of hanging on to it like we are prom. We're kind of hanging on as much as we can, even to see if we tentatively moved it to the last day of May, first 2 days of June. But if we get things pushed further, we may slide it back further. And we haven't canceled anything yet. we have postponed the Missouri Scholars 100 also. So those two events are kind of in the holding pattern. They're circling around the top of our building, and we haven't made any decisions yet.
Okay, anything else for the good of group? And then Doug, you said you wanted to move the time by an hour.
Yeah. Do you guys mind moving to 1 o'clock?
1 o'clock or 3 o'clock work better? Anybody opposed to Tuesdays at 1 p.m.?
Nope.
Because at 2 o'clock this time, there's the town hall. NASSP brings in 4, 5, 6. Jay Apostle from Monette was on last Tuesday or Thursday. I don't know what day it is, but he was on the last Tuesday or Thursday, whichever one was last. And he did a great job representing the state of Missouri. And it's a webinar. You can type in some questions if you have something for the panel, but it's quite interesting.
Okay, so we'll plan on next Tuesday at 1 p.m. unless you hear differently. If you guys have things you need to talk about between now and then, these topics or more, or if we just need to do something fun just to connect and kick back and not talk about COVID-19 for 20 minutes, that might help everybody. So appreciate you joining us, and stay healthy and take care of each other and those around you.
Hey, anyone on the MoASS leadership team, if you guys could stick around for just a second, got a couple questions for you. Jonathan, and I'm trying to look real quick. Anybody else that's on here? Jared?
We can set something up.
Okay.
All right, see you guys.
Yeah.